The summer air hung heavy with pine and possibility as twilight descended over Camp Evergreen. Nestled in the heart of the Cascade Mountains, the camp had been a sanctuary for young adults seeking connection with nature and each other for over 50 years. The wooden cabins, weathered by seasons of rain and sun, stood as silent witnesses to countless stories of friendship, discovery, and sometimes love. It was here, among the towering Douglas firs and whispered legends of the forest, that Alex and Jamie would find themselves sharing more than just the last lantern on Camp Trail. Alex arrived at camp with the confidence of someone who had always found their place easily in the world. With an infectious laugh and eyes that crinkled at the corners when they smiled, Alex had a way of drawing others into their orbit. The kind of person who would jump into the lake before testing the temperature, who would volunteer first for any challenge. Beneath that adventurous exterior, though, was someone still searching for a place where they could be fully understood. Jamie, by contrast, moved through the world with careful consideration, thoughtful and observant. Jamie preferred to watch and listen before speaking, to understand the currents before diving in. With a quiet smile that revealed itself slowly and dark eyes that seemed to hold the depth of the night sky, Jamie carried a journal everywhere, capturing thoughts and observations that felt too precious or too dangerous to share aloud. Camp Evergreen had a rich history that the counselors shared during orientation. Originally founded in 1972 as a traditional summer camp, it had evolved over the decades into a place that celebrated diversity and self-discovery. These woods have always been a place where people could find themselves, Counselor Mia explained on the first night, her voice carrying across the welcome bonfire. The indigenous peoples who lived here first believed these forests held special magic, the ability to reveal your true self if you were brave enough to listen. The camp's most beloved tradition was the night hike along Camp Trail, a winding path that curved through the oldest part of the forest, ending at Reflection Point, a clearing that offered a perfect view of the stars when the sky was clear. The hike was scheduled for the third night of camp, giving everyone just enough time to settle in, but not enough time to form impenetrable cliques. It was designed that way intentionally, to break down barriers and create new connections. Let me explain why this night hike mattered so much to everyone at camp. In our everyday lives, we rarely step away from artificial light, from screens and distractions, from the personas we've carefully constructed. There's something transformative about walking in darkness with only minimal light to guide you. Your senses heighten. The boundaries between you and others, between you and nature, begin to dissolve. You speak more honestly because you can't fully see the reactions on others' faces. You listen more carefully because the darkness demands it. The night hike wasn't just a walk in the woods. It was an invitation to shed the layers of protection we all carry. As the afternoon of the hike arrived, excitement rippled through the camp. The day's activities, canoeing, archery, arts and crafts, all seemed to drag as campers anticipated the evening ahead. After dinner, everyone gathered around the main campfire, where Counselor Mia and Counselor Devon prepared them for what was to come. Tonight, Devon said, his deep voice commanding attention, you'll experience these woods in a whole new way. You'll be divided into groups of 8, each with a counselor and a lantern. The lanterns are essential. They provide just enough light to see the path without drowning out the stars and the subtle magic of the forest at night. Mia stepped forward, her expression serious. The lanterns also represent our responsibility to each other. Each group shares one light, which means you must stay together, move at the pace of your slowest member, and ensure everyone completes the journey safely. As luck or fate would have it, Alex and Jamie were assigned to the last group, led by Counselor Zach, a graduate student in ecology with an encyclopedic knowledge of the forest ecosystem. Their group was diverse. Twins Maya and Miguel who finished each other's sentences, Taylor who had barely spoken to anyone since arrival, Sasha who seemed to know everything about constellations, Jordan who told the worst jokes with the most enthusiasm, and Riley who hummed constantly under their breath. When it came time to collect their supplies, Zach returned from the equipment shed with a concerned expression. Slight change of plans, he announced. We've got the last lantern, and it's seen better days. The glass is cracked on one side, and it doesn't burn as brightly as the others. We'll need to be extra careful and stick close together. Alex immediately stepped forward. I'll carry it. They volunteered, reaching for the lantern with characteristic eagerness. The metal was warm to the touch, the light inside flickering unevenly, casting dancing shadows across Alex's face. Jamie watched this exchange quietly, noting how the imperfect light transformed Alex's features, highlighting cheekbones and creating shadows that seemed to reveal something more vulnerable beneath the confident exterior. Something stirred in Jamie then, a curiosity, a recognition perhaps. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the other groups departed one by one down the trail, their lanterns creating a procession of light that gradually disappeared into the trees, Jamie found themselves standing next to Alex. "Do you think it'll hold out for the whole hike?" Jamie asked, nodding toward the lantern. Alex looked down at the flickering flame. "I hope so. But if not," they added with a grin, "we'll just have to hold on to each other in the dark." Jamie felt a flush of warmth that had nothing to do with the summer evening. Before they could respond, Zach called the group together for final instructions, and then they were off, the last group to enter the gathering darkness of Camp Trail. The beginning of the trail was wide and welcoming, winding gently through younger trees that allowed patches of darkening sky to be visible overhead. The group moved together easily, voices animated as they pointed out interesting shadows, the occasional flutter of a bat overhead, the distant hooting of an owl. "Did you know," Sasha offered, pointing upward, "that we can see over 3,000 stars with the naked eye on a clear night like this? And each of those stars could have its own planets, possibly with their own forms of life looking back at us. That's both amazing and terrifying," Jamie said, surprising themselves by speaking up. "Exactly," Alex agreed, turning to smile at Jamie, the lantern light catching in their eyes. "That's what I love about nature. It makes you feel simultaneously insignificant and connected to something enormous." As they ventured deeper into the forest, the trail narrowed, forcing them to walk in pairs or single file. The trees grew older here, towering giants that blocked most of the sky. The darkness thickened around them, making the lantern's light more necessary and its flickering more noticeable. "The trees here are over 400 years old," Zach explained, his voice taking on the quality of a storyteller. "They were already ancient when the first European settlers arrived. If you place your hand on their bark, you're touching something that has witnessed centuries of history." One by one, they each pressed their palms against the rough bark of a massive Douglas fir. When it was Jamie's turn, they closed their eyes, trying to imagine all the stories this tree had witnessed. When they opened their eyes, Alex was watching them with an expression of gentle curiosity. "What were you thinking about?" Alex asked softly as they continued walking, now side by side as the trail widened slightly. Jamie hesitated, then decided to answer honestly. "I was thinking about permanence. How these trees remain while we're just passing through briefly. How many other people have walked this same path, touched this same tree, had conversations that felt important in the moment but are now forgotten." Alex was quiet for a moment. "That doesn't make the conversations less important," they finally said. "Maybe the meaning is in the moment itself, not in how long it lasts." Around them, the group had naturally separated into smaller conversations. The twins were arguing good-naturedly about which constellation was which. Jordan was attempting to make Taylor laugh with increasingly ridiculous forest jokes. Riley and Sasha walked ahead with Zach, asking questions about nocturnal animals. "What brought you to Camp Evergreen?" Jamie asked, suddenly wanting to know more about Alex. "My older brother came here years ago," Alex replied. "He said it was the first place he felt he could be himself completely. I wanted to see if I'd feel the same." There was something vulnerable in the admission that made Jamie pay closer attention. "What about you?" Jamie gestured vaguely at the surrounding forest. "I wanted to be somewhere without cell service or internet. Somewhere I could hear myself think. My thoughts get drowned out sometimes in the regular world." "And what are those thoughts saying now?" Alex asked, their voice gentle in the darkness. Before Jamie could answer, the lantern flickered violently, the flame nearly extinguishing before stabilizing again, dimmer than before. Everyone stopped walking. "We should conserve the light," Zach advised. "Alex, try turning the flame down slightly so it burns more efficiently. And everyone, let's stay closer together from this point forward." The group clustered more tightly around Alex and the weakening lantern. Jamie found themselves walking so close to Alex that their shoulders occasionally brushed, each contact sending a small current of awareness through them. The forest seemed to grow denser around them, the shadows deeper and more animated in the lantern's uneven light. "Does anyone else feel like we're being watched?" Taylor asked suddenly, breaking their usual silence. "It's just the nocturnal animals," Zachary assured them. "We're visitors in their home, after all. Or maybe it's the forest spirits," Jordan suggested with dramatic flair. "My grandmother used to say forests are full of beings just beyond our perception." "That's actually a common belief across many cultures," Sasha added. "The idea that forests are inhabited by spirits or entities that protect the natural world." As they discussed the possibilities, Jamie noticed how the shadows seemed to move independently of their group, shifting and retreating in ways that couldn't be entirely explained by the lantern's flickering light. Looking at Alex, Jamie could tell they had noticed it too, their eyes tracking the movement at the edges of their vision. "The trail gets more challenging up ahead," Zach warned as they approached a section where the path climbed steeply over exposed roots and rocks. "We'll need to help each other. Alex, be especially careful with the lantern." The group slowed as they navigated the difficult terrain. Jamie watched as Alex concentrated intensely on maintaining their balance while protecting the precious light. When Alex reached a particularly tricky section, a large fallen log that crossed the path, Jamie instinctively moved forward to help. "Here," Jamie said, offering a hand for stability as Alex carefully stepped over the obstacle. Their hands connected, warm and solid in the cool night air, and held for a moment longer than necessary after Alex was safely across. "Thanks," Alex said softly, their face close enough that Jamie could see the individual eyelashes casting tiny shadows on their cheeks. Working together, the group helped each other across the challenging section of trail. The shared effort created a new sense of camaraderie, and as they continued walking on easier ground, the conversations flowed more freely, touching on deeper topics than before. "What's something you've never told anyone?" Riley asked the group at large, their usual humming temporarily suspended. After a moment of silence, Miguel spoke up. "I'm terrified of failing. Everyone thinks because Maya and I are twins, we're equally good at everything. But she's always been the talented one. I just work twice as hard to keep up." Maya looked at her brother in surprise. "That's not true at all. I've always admired how easily you connect with people, how you understand things intuitively that I have to analyze to death." Others began sharing their own secrets. Taylor admitted to feeling invisible most of the time. Sasha confessed that despite their knowledge of stars, they were afraid of the dark. Jordan revealed that humor was their way of keeping people from seeing how deeply they felt things. The lantern flickered again, more persistently this time, casting wild shadows that seemed to dance around them with increasing animation. The group instinctively moved closer together, forming a tight circle around Alex and the failing light. "We're about halfway to Reflection Point," Zach informed them, checking his watch. "The trail levels out soon, but we're entering the oldest part of the forest. The trees are denser here, and it will be significantly darker." As if responding to his words, the lantern sputtered dramatically. The flame shrank to a tiny blue core, then flared briefly before settling into a weak, wavering light that barely illuminated their immediate surroundings. "It's dying," Alex said, tension evident in their voice. "I don't think it's going to last much longer." Jamie moved closer to Alex, their shoulders touching. "What happens if it goes out completely?" Jamie asked Zach, trying to keep the anxiety from their voice. "We have protocols for this," Zach assured them, though his expression was concerned. "I have a small emergency flashlight, but its batteries are low. It would give us just enough light to return to camp safely, but we'd have to turn back." A murmur of disappointment ran through the group. Reflection Point was the highlight of the night hike, the moment everyone had been looking forward to. "Maybe we can fix it," Alex suggested, examining the lantern more closely. The problem might be simple. As Alex carefully inspected the lantern, Jamie watched their face, illuminated from below by the failing light. There was something so determined, so unwilling to give up, that Jamie felt a surge of admiration. Without thinking, Jamie reached into their pocket and pulled out their notebook. "I have some paper we could use to shield the flame from drafts," Jamie offered. "It might help it burn more steadily." Alex looked up, surprise and gratitude in their expression. "That's your journal. Are you sure?" Jamie nodded. "Some things are worth sacrificing for." Working together, They carefully tore a few pages from the journal and created a makeshift shield inside the cracked glass of the lantern. The flame responded, burning more steadily, though still weaker than before. "It might be enough to get us to reflection point," Alex said hopefully, "if we stay really close together." "We should vote," Zach suggested. "We can either continue to reflection point with the risk of losing light completely, or we can turn back now while we still have some visibility." The group huddled together, shadows pressing in around their small circle of diminishing light. One by one, they voted to continue forward. The night hike was about facing the darkness, after all, about finding your way through uncertainty. As they resumed walking, the forest around them seemed to intensify. The trees grew more massive, their trunks wider than cars, their canopies completely blocking the sky. The underbrush thickened, sometimes encroaching on the trail itself. And the shadows moved in ways that made everyone walk a little faster, stay a little closer. The indigenous people called this part of the forest the Whispering Dark, Zach told them, his voice lower now. They believed it was a place where the veil between worlds was thinner, where messages could be received from beyond if you listened carefully enough. "What kind of messages?" Taylor asked, now walking so close to Jordan that they were practically one person. "Guidance, warnings, revelations about your true self," Zach replied. "The stories say that whatever you're hiding from yourself, the Whispering Dark knows it and will find ways to show you." Jamie felt a shiver that had nothing to do with the temperature. Next to them, Alex's hand brushed against theirs, then deliberately took hold, fingers intertwining. The contact was grounding, a human connection in the midst of the ancient, unknowable forest. "I'm not usually afraid of the dark," Alex whispered, leaning closer to Jamie. "But there's something about this place." "I know," Jamie whispered back. "It feels alive, doesn't it? Like it's watching us, evaluating us." Alex squeezed Jamie's hand. "At least we're facing it together." The lantern chose that moment to flicker violently, the flame nearly disappearing before resurging weakly. The shadows leapt and danced around them, seeming to take on forms that were almost human, almost animal, but neither entirely. Several people gasped. "Stay calm," Zach instructed, though his own voice had an edge to it. "It's just the light playing tricks on our eyes." But as they continued forward, the shadows seemed to move independently of the lantern's light, flowing alongside the trail, sometimes crossing it, sometimes pausing as if observing the group before moving on. No one spoke about it directly, but Jamie could feel the collective tension, the way everyone's eyes darted to track the movements just beyond their circle of light. The trail began to climb again, more gradually this time. According to Zach, they were approaching reflection point. The anticipation of reaching their destination gave everyone a second wind, and they moved more quickly despite the challenging terrain and failing light. And then, without warning, the lantern went out completely. The darkness that enveloped them was absolute, so thick it felt like a physical presence pressing against their skin. Someone, maybe Taylor, let out a small cry of alarm. Jamie felt Alex's hand tighten around theirs, an anchor in the sudden void. "Everyone stay exactly where you are," Zach commanded, his voice steady despite the situation. "Don't move until I get the emergency light." They could hear Zach rummaging in his backpack, muttering under his breath. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath, the usual nighttime sounds, insects, rustling leaves, distant animal calls, suddenly silent. In that silence, the darkness felt alive, curious, as if it were examining them closely now that they were fully immersed in it. Jamie felt something brush against their free arm. Not a person, something cooler, less substantial. They shivered involuntarily. "Did you feel that?" Alex whispered, so close that their breath warmed Jamie's ear. Before Jamie could answer, a dim light sputtered to life as Zach activated the emergency flashlight. Its beam was weak, illuminating only a small area directly in front of him, but after the complete darkness, it seemed miraculous. In the faint light, Jamie could see that everyone looked shaken. The twins were holding on to each other. Taylor had actually grabbed Jordan's arm and wasn't letting go. Riley had stopped humming and was completely silent. Sasha was looking around frantically, as if trying to locate something just beyond the light's reach. "The flashlight won't last long," Zach informed them, his expression grave. "We have two options. We can try to make it to reflection point. It's only about 10 minutes further, but we risk being in complete darkness on the return journey. Or we can turn back now and hopefully make it to the easier part of the trail before the light fails. How much further to Reflection Point exactly? Alex asked, still holding Jamie's hand tightly. Just around that bend and up a short incline, Zach said, pointing ahead with the flashlight. You can already see the tree canopy starting to open up. Alex looked at Jamie, a question in their eyes. Jamie understood without words being necessary. This was about more than just completing the hike. It was about facing the darkness together, about not turning back when things got difficult. I think we should continue, Jamie said, surprising themselves with the firmness in their voice. We've come this far. And maybe, they hesitated, then continued. Maybe there's something waiting for us at Reflection Point that we're meant to see. One by one, the others agreed. Even Taylor, still clutching Jordan's arm, nodded determinedly. There was a sense that they had passed some invisible threshold, that turning back now would mean more than just missing a view. It would mean refusing a challenge that had been presented specifically to them. With Zach leading the way, the flashlight creating a small bubble of visibility in the pressing darkness, they continued along the trail. The shadows seemed to move with more purpose now, flowing alongside them, sometimes crossing the path ahead, sometimes lingering just beyond the light's reach. Does anyone else see them? Sasha finally asked, breaking the tense silence. The shadows, they're moving independently, aren't they? No one denied it. They had all seen it. The stories say the whispering dark shows you what you need to see, Zach said quietly. Sometimes that means facing your fears. Sometimes it means recognizing a truth you've been avoiding. Jamie felt something shift in Alex's grip, a subtle tension. Looking over, Jamie could see Alex staring intently at a shadow that seemed to be keeping pace with them just off the trail. There was recognition in Alex's expression and something like longing. What do you see? Jamie whispered. Alex swallowed visibly. Myself. But not as I am, as I could be, as I want to be. They turned to Jamie, vulnerability plain on their face. What about you? What do you see? Jamie looked at the shadows moving around them. One in particular seemed to be watching Jamie specifically, its form shifting between clearly human and something more abstract, as if it couldn't decide how to present itself. I see possibility, Jamie said finally. Different versions of who I might become, depending on the choices I make. As they spoke, the trail began to widen, and through the trees ahead, they could see the darkness lightening. The flashlight flickered warningly, but they were close enough now that they pressed forward with renewed energy. And then they emerged into Reflection Point, and collectively gasped. The clearing was perfectly circular, ringed by ancient trees that seemed to stand guard. Above them, the sky opened up in a vast display of stars, more than any of them had ever seen, a river of light flowing across the heavens. But what made them gasp wasn't just the stars, it was the clearing itself. Small lights hovered throughout the space, gently pulsing with a blue-green luminescence. They moved slowly, some drifting upward as if trying to join the stars, others dancing in complex patterns just above the ground. Bioluminescent insects, Zach explained in a hushed voice, as if afraid of disturbing the magical scene. A rare species of firefly that's unique to this forest. They only appear on certain nights, usually when there's no artificial light to compete with their glow. It's like they were waiting for our lantern to go out, Maya whispered in wonder. Or maybe they're the reason it went out, Miguel suggested. Maybe they wanted us to see them like this, without interference. As they watched, the fireflies seemed to respond to their presence, gathering more densely in the center of the clearing, their light strengthening until they could see each other's faces clearly in the ethereal glow. Jamie looked at Alex and felt something catch in their chest. Alex's expression was transformed by wonder, their eyes reflecting the living light around them. Without the barrier of the lantern between them, they stood facing each other in the gentle illumination, still holding hands. I've been wanting to tell you something since the first day, Alex said softly, the fireflies creating a private universe around them despite the others nearby. But I wasn't sure how, or if I should. Jamie felt their heart accelerate. Tell me now, they encouraged, squeezing Alex's hand. I came to Camp Evergreen because my brother found himself here, but also because I'm still finding myself, Alex said, the words coming faster now, as if they'd been held back too long. I'm not always the confident person I appear to be. I'm still figuring out who I am, especially. They hesitated, then continued, especially when it comes to who I love and how I identify. And from the moment I saw you, I felt like maybe you were someone who would understand that journey. Jamie felt tears prick at their eyes, unexpected but welcome. I understand more than you know, they replied. My journal, the one we tore pages from to save the lantern, it's full of thoughts I've never shared with anyone. Questions about identity, about belonging, about finding someone who sees me completely. Around them, the fireflies pulsed more brightly, as if responding to the truth being spoken. In their gentle light, Jamie could see similar conversations happening throughout the group, the twins embracing with new understanding, Taylor and Jordan sitting close together looking up at the stars, Riley and Sasha deep in conversation, Zach watching over them all with a knowing smile. The whispering dark reveals what you need to see, Jamie murmured, remembering Zach's words. Maybe what we all needed was to see each other, and ourselves, more clearly. Alex nodded, moving slightly closer. I'm glad the lantern went out, they confessed. I'm glad we had to find another kind of light. As if responding to Alex's words, the fireflies began to gather more densely around them, creating a swirling column of living light that enveloped them in a private aurora. In that magical illumination, Jamie saw Alex with perfect clarity, not just their physical features, but the person beneath, complex and searching and beautiful. Slowly, giving time for retreat if desired, Alex leaned forward. Jamie met them halfway, and their lips connected in a kiss that felt like a continuation of their conversation, another way of saying, I see you. I understand. I'm on this journey too. When they separated, the fireflies dispersed slightly, as if satisfied with what they had witnessed. Around the clearing, the others were having their own moments of connection and revelation, each according to their needs. They stayed at Reflection Point for nearly an hour, watching the stars wheel overhead, the fireflies dancing around them, sometimes speaking and sometimes sitting in comfortable silence. When it was finally time to return, they discovered something remarkable. The fireflies accompanied them, lighting their way along the trail in a procession of living lanterns. The journey back through the whispering dark felt entirely different. The shadows still moved, but they no longer seemed threatening, more like companions seeing them safely through. The group walked together, closer than before, changed by what they had experienced. When they finally emerged from the forest and saw the warm lights of Camp Evergreen ahead, Jamie felt a momentary sadness. The magic of the night was ending, the regular world reasserting itself. As if sensing these thoughts, Alex squeezed their hand. This doesn't end here, they said softly. Whatever started tonight, between us, within each of us, it continues. Jamie nodded, understanding the truth of it. The lantern had gone out, but they had found other kinds of light, in the fireflies, in the stars, and most importantly, in each other. As they approached the main campfire where the other groups had already gathered, Jamie noticed that a few fireflies had followed them all the way back, still dancing around Alex and Jamie specifically, as if reluctant to let them go. Look, Jamie said, pointing to the persistent insects. I think we've been chosen. Alex smiled, the firefly light reflecting in their eyes. Maybe we chose each other, and they're just celebrating that. The rest of the camp watched in amazement as their group returned, accompanied by the swirling lights. Counselor Mia approached them, her expression curious. Your lantern? She asked, noticing its absence. It went out, Zach explained. But we found something better. As the group dispersed to join the others around the campfire, sharing their experiences and listening to the stories from different parts of the trail, Alex and Jamie lingered at the edge of the gathering, still surrounded by their small cluster of fireflies. Tomorrow, Alex said, would you like to explore the lake trail with me? I hear there's a hidden cove that's perfect for swimming and talking, and maybe continuing what we started tonight. Jamie smiled, feeling more certain than they had in a long time. I'd like that. I'd like that very much. Above them, the stars continued their ancient patterns. Around them, the fireflies danced their ephemeral lives away. And between them, something new and fragile and wonderful had begun to grow, a light of their own making that would guide them forward long after the summer ended and Camp Evergreen became a memory. In the days that followed, they would learn more about each other, share the contents of Jamie's journal, discuss Alex's journey of self-discovery. They would swim in the hidden cove, hike other trails, sit by other fires. But neither of them would ever forget that night on Camp Trail, when the last lantern went out and the darkness revealed what the light had been hiding all along. That sometimes, the things we fear most contain the very magic we've been seeking. And sometimes, finding yourself means finding someone else who sees you clearly, even in the dark. Total _char_count. 18,767.